powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the time, whatever the moment, whatever the sport, Bet365. It's never ordinary. Adam Caplan's here on a Football Friday, co-host of the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can find on any podcasting platform or on their YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds. And he joins us now as the Eagles getting ready for the L.A. Rams at 2-2. The Rams are kind of an interesting team. We were talking to someone out in L.A. earlier, Adam, and they said, well, better than expected, this Rams team so far.
Yeah, we talked about that on Inside the Birds, our latest show, our preview of the game, which dropped earlier today on all platforms, our YouTube channel, and all pod platforms. So, yeah, there's no doubt. It's not just the record. They're very competitive. Look, they smoked the Seahawks in Week 1 in Seattle. That is hard to do. They came back and won last week's game. They've been competitive every game. Yeah, they're going to get Cooper Kupp back, by the way, this week. We'll get an injury report in a minute. So, yeah, and we'll get to the Eagles. We just got their updated report. We'll talk about that. This is a fun game. When the schedule came out in the spring, I'm like, Rams aren't going to be very good. I don't think it'll be very competitive. This will be a boring game. I spent 2 days with them in training camp. Talking to them, they were flipping the roster. They want to get younger, and they certainly have, save a couple players. But, yeah, they've definitely been more competitive.
Yeah, I know this Rams team better than people thought, but let's take a look at some of the things here. We start out with the injury issues. The report just came out moments ago. Sidney Brown, Fletcher Cox, Cam Jurgens, Marlon Tuipulotu, they are out for the game.
Yeah, so the Eagles will dress 5 defensive tackles. Moro Jomo will be the 5th. Cam Jurgens is out. And then, as we know, Suapeta is back in. He did a good job filling in for him during the game. That's hard to do. Sidney Brown, unfortunately, though he worked this week, will not play. That's not good, but Justin Evans has been cleared from the neck injury. He will play this week. Unless something happens on their flight, they leave for L.A. tomorrow. He'll be in the lineup. And then, yeah, Tuipulotu, it's a shame. He's given some quality snaps as a backup tackle. Doesn't play a lot, but decent snaps. And Britton Covey, here's the thing, Mike. He looked pretty good. In fact, he took his normal reps today, but he has not been cleared yet to play. So he's got to see an independent neurologist. If he does and they clears him, he'll be available as a punt returner this week. So we've only had one player clear protocol within a week for a Sunday game. That is Gus Edwards, the running back for the Ravens. So it's rare to do, but Covey's on his way to doing that. We'll see what happens with the next 24.
All right, there you go on that side. And, of course, Qued Watkins not on that list, and I guess that means he might be back in action today. And Justin Evans.
Yeah, Evans is back, as I said. And then Quez Watkins, this is big because it gives them that 9-route guy. That guy could go deep. Yes, he could play inside, but he's not a natural slot, though he's obviously played it quite a bit. Zacchaeus has done a nice job. So they're good there. That'll give them 4. Obviously, Covey would be the backup. He could just be a 5th receiver if they need him to. If Covey can't play, Zacchaeus is the likely punt returner. Outside chance they call up Greg Ward for the game, so that's how that would work.
All right, let's take a look at the Rams here. You got Matthew Stafford, Kyron Williams. We mentioned Cooper Kupp and some injuries on their offensive line.
Yeah, Stafford will play with his hip contusion. Boy, he really struggled through last week's game. He did a great job finishing somehow with that hip contusion. He'll play. They expect Kyron Williams to play also with a hip contusion. Now they're starting running back. After Cam Jurgens was shipped out a couple weeks ago to the Vikings, the big story today is Cooper Kupp has been cleared to play. They will activate him on Saturday by 4 p.m. Eastern so he could play. Now, we don't know how many snaps he'll handle, but, Mike, I'm telling you, with Eagles' issues in the secondary, they're a team that's heavy 11 personnel. We had John DeFilippo, the former Eagles quarterbacks coach, on today's Patreon Chalk Talk, and John talked about the difference between the 49ers Shanahan offense and the McVay offense, where the Niners run a lot of 21 personnel with a fullback that's Kyle Juszczyk, and where the Rams don't use a fullback, they're heavy 11 personnel, which means 3 receivers and 1 tight end. And now with Kupp back, and quite frankly, Mike, they play a lot of receivers. They might run some 10 personnel, which is 1 back, no tight end, and 4 receivers. So you might see that. Then also on offense, their line is banged up. Alaric Jackson, who's a guard, is not expected to play. Kevin Dotson was acquired from the Steelers a couple weeks ago. He should get a second straight start. And Joe Noteboom, their left tackle, Hasn't done anything yet this week. We'll see what happens today, but he's got a groin injury. They thought he could play earlier this week, so they don't have a very good offensive line to begin with. That is where, Mike, when we talk about the matchups, the Eagles' defense matches up, their front matches up very well with the Rams' offensive line.
Yeah, that's one spot we think the Eagles have a big advantage. Let's look at the Eagles' offense against the Rams' defense. First, though, Jalen Hurts against that Rams front seven. The Eagles' running game, obviously they can run, throw. How do we look at this Eagles' offense against the Rams' defense?
Yeah, I don't think Hurts is, Mike, I know he ran it a lot last week. I don't think he looks explosive right now as a runner. Boy, he was really good throwing it, though. No doubt about it. You should hear DiFilippo's comments about Hurts' tape that he watched. But Hurts is certainly, this is his best game of the season. I expect him to do well against a very inexperienced secondary. The running backs, you obviously have to account for where Aaron Donald's going to be. The Eagles' offensive line should match up very well. They'll be able to block for DeAndre Swift, who's now their starter, which he should have been, to be honest, for the start of the season. That was a mistake. But now he's clearly the guy. With Gainwell's the number 2. Boston Scott is the 3. The receivers, Mike. Now, here's interesting. Now with Quez Watkins back, do they spread the Rams out? The Eagles have been more 12 personnel than they were last year. I would expect in this game that they'll play some more 11, like we've seen lately. They're ramping up a little bit more 11 than they had maybe the first couple games. With Watkins back, the 9 route, the deep ball could be back with him and A.J. Brown. Dallas Goedert versus the linebackers and defensive backs for the Rams. That's an area they got to get Goddard to football, Mike. It's been obviously disappointing. The coaches have to dial him up. That's where Nick Sirianni has to tell Brian Johnson, get this guy the football. And then their offensive line. The Eagles, other than Donald, I don't really worry about any pass rushers with the Rams, Mike. I think they'll be okay there.
Yeah.
Obviously, they have to have a game plan to make sure they know where Aaron Donald is on every single play and have a plan really to double team him as much as possible.
Yeah, you're right. They're young. They got a lot of guys playing new roles out there. So the defense of them, young spots here. Let's look at the Eagles. By the way, you mentioned Donald. Their Eagles' offensive line is pretty much intact. The only guy is Sue Opeta, and I would imagine they're going to use Opeta or Donald against Opeta a lot.
Well, they move him around, Donald. Yes, but I'm sure, obviously, because that's a guy who has not played a lot. This will be his 6th NFL start, so yeah, and he also started a playoff game against Tampa Bay, if you remember, a couple of years ago. So yeah, look, no doubt about it, but it's to me, though, it's can the Eagles, Mike, get after Stafford? They have to be able to do that. That, to me, is where, in addition to their offensive line protecting against Donald, can they get after Matthew Stafford, who's had a very good season?
Right. All right, let's flip it over, Adam, and look at the Rams offense. You just mentioned Matthew Stafford's had a good season. He's got a lot of good weapons out there. So Stafford, he's going to be looking at the DBs here. We're going to see Bradley Roby. What will the secondary, how will it be kind of situated? So there's some storylines here. The Rams, Kyron Williams. We know their receivers. Everybody can start rattling their names off. Higbee had 3 touchdowns in the game against Philly a couple of years ago. And then, of course, their offensive line is a problem. So how does the Rams' offense match up in this one?
Yeah, Higbee had 3 touchdowns in the COVID year here in Philly. If you remember, there was no crowd there, but he had 3 touchdowns. So, yeah, here's what it is, Mike. It's Tutu Atwell, who's having a breakout season. He didn't really do much his first 2 years out of Louisville. He's a second-rounder, but he's been really good. Puka Nacua leading all rookie receivers in receptions. He's been incredible. Cup's going to play. Van Jefferson as their ex. His dad, Sean, former NFL receiver, who's now the Panthers receivers coach. So, and Ben Skoranek, who's backup ex. They'll go really, 4 receivers. You got Tyler Higbee's terrific, who the Rams almost traded, by the way, 5 years ago to the Vikings. He just got his contract extended. Really good football player. He's their wide tight end, which means he's in line, but you'll see those tunnel screens. They're really good at executing it. I don't worry about Kyron Williams, Mike. To be honest with you, as a runner, he's nothing special. Grinds it out, but to me, the key here is the Rams' 11 personnel and even some 10, as we were talking about earlier, go against that secondary. The Eagles, they're giving up a ton of production, and they're not communicating well. It's because of the changes they have in the secondary. And Sean McVay, with a pre-snap movement, is going to try to confuse these DBs.
Yeah, and Roby, how do you think that does he emerge this week and play? Last year, the only precedent on this is they signed Joseph and Sue, and they played the same week. Different situation, though, tackle and corner. You think Roby will play on Sunday?
I would say this, Mike. They got 3 practices plus tomorrow's walkthrough. if they think he's in good enough physical shape, there's no reason why he can't do something. It's a conditioning issue, Mike. Now, he was with, obviously, the Saints in training camp, so he should be in pretty good shape here, and he's eventually going to be the slot. That's why they signed him. That's 100% why they signed him. That's going to happen. It's just a matter of, okay, now here's the other thing. If he plays over the next couple of weeks, Mike, how does he look? I mean, your hope is he's back to where he was a couple of years ago, but he is 31 years old, and there's a reason why the Saints cut him.
For the people out there who don't pay attention to the Rams all that much, Adam, Puka Nacua, a new name on the wide receiver world, but he's number 2 in the league in receptions. He's having an unbelievable year. Having him and Cooper Kupp back, if Roby doesn't play, Bradbury in the slot again?
Yes, and Justin Evans as well. Yeah, here's the thing, Mike. They don't typically play a lot of outside receivers. You'll see Kupp line up in the slot. They reduce him. Like, even if he looks like he's outside, he's really inside. Nacua is an inside receiver. He's a Z. It's fascinating the way that they use him, Mike. It's going to be really difficult for the Eagles corners. There's no doubt about it. It's not a good matchup for them, but the Eagles offense matches up well against the Rams defense. And by the way, look at the over-under, Mike, for this game. It's over 50, which is a lot.
Yeah, their offense interesting. Their offensive line also interesting. That could be the battle. Could the Eagles win up front? Last week they were not able to do that against we saw the Commanders last night struggle up front, and that's why last week was so weird that they didn't win as significantly up front, I guess, against Washington. They should be able to win the battle up front this week.
I see the Eagles winning up front on both sides of the football, but it's just a matter of, can the Rams hang in it? And the answer is yes, they can. It's to the point now where you do worry about the Eagles' back end, but I don't know that the Rams match up well. They don't have a lot of experience, and getting Quez Watkins back, I know it's a minor thing, but that could help. So these matchups are really good. This is a fun game. This is probably one of those games, again, where you looked at it and said, okay, well, this is an easy Eagles win. Not so fast. You saw what happened last week. This is a one-off game.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Mike, this is the first Sunday to Sunday week for the Eagles where they play on both Sundays.
There you go. All right. We've got that game on Sunday right here on 97.3 ESPN. Merrill Reese, Mike Quick with the call. 4:05 is your kickoff time in L.A. for the Eagles and the Rams and the Inside the Birds podcast. Their crew will have pregame on their YouTube and social media platforms. He's Adam Caplan, co-host of the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can find on all podcasting platforms and on their YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds. Adam, thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
And that is a Happy Hour Friday football at 4 look at the Eagles taking on the L.A. Rams. And, of course, you can hear the game, as we mentioned, on 97.3 ESPN.